stop wasting time. God wants us to be fully aware that our days are numbered. You can't reap what you never sow. When we waste time, we're not just losing hours, we are literally losing opportunities. How are you stewarding the time that God has given you? The last thing that I would want for anyone is for dilly-dallying to become a lifestyle. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Girls in Real Life podcast. I'm your host Mariah Hutchinson. Happy Monday. I hope you guys are doing well. This is the second to last Monday in September. Like, I don't know what happened, but September literally said, girl, bye. Like, I'm gone. This week is actually my older sister's birthday. Is it on Tuesday or Wednesday? Whatever day the 23rd is, that's the day that her birthday is on. So obviously super excited to celebrate her. And she is literally just like one of my favorite people in the world. We are so close now, even though growing up we were nowhere near that. Okay, I was just the annoying little sister. But as I've gotten older, like we've just gotten so close. We live 5 minutes away from each other. I lean on her for literally everything. And I remember one day I saw a video of a girl crying, and she was like, when you realize that your older sister doesn't have an older sister or something, like nobody to rely on or whatever. And so I sent it to her and I was like, oh my gosh, do you feel like you don't have anybody? Like, because I genuinely could not imagine my life without you. And like, if I didn't have you to bounce ideas off of or get advice from, I genuinely don't know what I would do with myself. And she's like, girl, I'm fine. Like, I'm good. And that is such a typical older sister vibe. But yeah, she's turning 32. We're getting old, man. It's just so wild to see how you grow, and also like your family and those around you that you've grown up with also grow. And I don't know, man. Life is just weird if I think about it too deeply, so I don't want to. But yeah, super excited to celebrate her. We really don't have much else going on this week. We did go to Miss Louisiana, USA this past weekend, but when I'm recording this, we're not even there yet, so I have no idea what the outcome of that even is, but obviously hoping for a win for our girls. Both of them or one of them. I would love that to happen. And then Miss USA will be in October next month in a couple of weeks, which is actually insane. But again, y'all don't care about none of that stuff. So we're just going to go ahead and dive right into today's episode, because I really don't have too many things to update you guys on as it pertains to my life. Today we are talking about the danger of dilly-dallying. And I know it sounds silly, but it's actually very serious, okay? So apparently dilly-dallying has become the new cute phrase the girlies are using on TikTok. I've seen so many videos about people saying you need to learn how to dilly-dally. You know, this is how I dilly-dally. I'm dilly-dallying, you know, just doing all these cute things like running errands, drinking your cute little coffee, walking around Target, scrolling TikTok, you know, just existing, not really exerting a whole lot of energy, not really concerning yourself too much with like what's going on. You're just kind of in your own little bubble doing things that bring you joy and peace and good vibes, which I love. Okay, I am all for having a slow day, a day where you just kind of get to do nothing, a day where you can just be sort of mindless and just really do the things that make you happy and not stressed out. But I fear this could potentially be a slippery slope that we're on if we're not careful, because the last thing that I would want for anyone is for dilly-dallying to become a lifestyle, to where dilly-dallying is just all you do every single day. Because if that's the case, then you can look up one day and days, weeks, months, even years could have potentially gone by because we've been distracting ourselves with so many of these little mindless things that we just enjoy to do, that we've in a sense been avoiding our calling or just not being proactive in the things that God has asked you to do. That's where it can kind of go from harmless fun to this dangerous delay. So I really want this episode to be an encouragement to someone out there to stop wasting time, because it truly is the most precious thing that we've been given. And I know it's so easy to think that we have so much of it, But like I said earlier, like even just watching people grow around you and you realize like I'm about to be 30 next year. My older sister is 32. And like in my brain, it still feels like we're teenagers in high school. But in reality, we are grown women with our own families, our own responsibilities, so on and so forth. And it's like you blink and you're a grown up. So that is just genuinely the last thing that I want for anyone is for you to be dilly-dallying around and just having fun and doing whatever it is that you want to do, that you are in a sense distracting yourself from the very things that you should be doing and not actually realizing how much time has gone by. We really should all learn to be great stewards of our time. You know, I feel like when we talk about stewardship, we talk about finances and all these like material things, stewarding over the things that God has given you. And like, yeah, that is great and much needed as well. But I think a main thing that we forget to steward over is our time, because the clock is ticking and God has only given you so much time in this earth to complete the assignments that he's put on your heart. And so it's super important for us to use the time that we have here wisely so that we can do the things that God has asked us to do, so that we can live successful lives and so that we can actually live a life with purpose instead of just aimlessly wandering around and doing these mindless tasks that bring us joy in the moment, but in the long run are not beneficial to us in any way. So what does dilly-dallying really look like? It's such a funny word when you say it that many times. Dilly-dally, dilly-dally. It's not necessarily laziness, but it's definitely not rooted in productivity. Most of the time it can look like doom scrolling. Okay, this is something that especially as of late, I've found myself doing a lot of, and I really need to stop and just like nip it in the bud. But I think a lot of us just get sucked into our phones and into the internet and into social media so much that we just go down this rabbit hole and we look up and we look at the time and it's like, dang, I was doing that for 30 minutes. Like, yeah, girl, you was in a trance. So yeah, dilly-dallying can look like doom scrolling instead of being productive and being proactive. It can look like coveting over other people's lives instead of cultivating your own. And what I mean by this, again, kind of going back to social media, we are looking at everybody else live their dream lives, accomplish their goals, and do big things. And the more that we do that, the less that we're actually cultivating positive things happening in our own lives and accomplishing the goals that we have set for ourselves. And again, it might seem harmless, like, oh, I wish I had that car, or I wish that I had that house, or I wish that I had that life that they perceive to be living. But at the same time, when that becomes your language, you then start to believe that you'll never be able to get those things, or even worse, you won't even try to work towards those things because you deem it as so impossible. Dilly-dallying can also look like filling your time with random tasks that make you seem busy, but in reality, you're not actually moving forward. You know, this is the people that be so busy and have so many things to do, and yet they feel like they're still not progressing in life. And it's simply because you're filling up your days with things that are not going to get you to where you want to go. So to put it all in a neat and pretty bow, dilly-dallying is wasting time doing things that are not going to get you to where you want to be. It is you aimlessly wandering and not allowing yourself to fully commit to anything. And that will actually lead us into our anchor scripture for today's episode. We're going to be in Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 4, and it reads, "Whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap. As you do not know the path of the wind or how the body is formed in a mother's womb, so you cannot understand the work of God, the maker of all things." That's actually verses 4 through 5. But the main part that we're going to focus on is verse 4. Whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap. Now, to me, this has two different meanings. The first meaning is you're someone who is waiting for the perfect conditions, because when someone is watching the wind or looking at the clouds, they're essentially trying to investigate the weather. They're trying to see, is it going to rain? How windy is it? Is it going to snow? Is it overcast? Is it sunny? You're trying to analyze what the weather is going to be like to decide what it is that you want to do. And so this, in a literal sense, is you waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect finances, the perfect confidence, for the time to quote unquote feel right. But because you're waiting on the perfect conditions, that actually hinders you from doing the very thing that you're supposed to be doing. And we all know that perfect conditions don't exist. So when those perfect conditions never come, you never plant, therefore you never reap. And you can't reap what you don't sow. And this is why people don't chase their dreams or don't do what God has asked them to do, because they don't want to sow their seed in imperfect conditions, because that could cause a negative outcome. But the truth of the matter is you can't reap what you never sow. And if perfect conditions never come, if there's always the goalpost that's moving, like, oh, I need more money, but then you get the money and then you make another excuse. Oh, I need a business partner. And then the business partner comes and then something else comes up and you make another excuse, right? Like there's always going to be something that you wish could be better or was a better condition, but that is just genuinely not the case. And so because that never happens, you don't do the thing. And when you don't do the thing, you can never reap the benefits from that or learn the lessons from that moment, because you refuse to sow. But what you have to realize is that all planting requires a risk, okay? Even in a literal sense, if I go get a seed and plant it in the ground, I'm having faith that that seed is actually going to germinate and build roots and grow and do whatever it is that it needs to do. But it could potentially be nothing. It could not rain enough. An animal could come and dig up my seed, or maybe it will grow, but it'll be a super small harvest, right? Like you genuinely do not know. Planting is a risk in any conditions, but if you are consistently waiting for the perfect conditions, you need it to be sunny enough, you need everything to be just right, you need everything to fall into place, then you're never going to get anything in the soil. You can't expect a harvest from seeds that you never put in the ground. So that's the first meaning that I got from this verse, is that someone is waiting for the perfect conditions. Someone is literally watching the weather, looking at the clouds, watching the wind to see when they should move, essentially. And the second meaning that I got from this verse is you're getting distracted from the task. You get so caught up in watching the wind and looking at the clouds that you distract yourself from doing the very thing that you went outside to do. How many times have we walked into a room with the intention of doing something and our attention shifts to something completely different than what we originally went in there to do? I know this happens to me all the time. I either forget what I was going to do or I get distracted by something else in that room that takes me off course of what I was supposed to be doing. So our distractions hinder us from completing the task because our focus has shifted. So when I read this verse about someone watching the wind and looking at the clouds, that gives me a sense that somebody went outside with the intention to plant something, to do yard work or whatever the case may be, but then they got caught up in looking at everything else that they were never able to plant. And that's a picture of life when we let our attention constantly shift. And as y'all know, we live in a society where our attention spans are that of a fly now, thanks to phones and social media and instant gratification and all the things. And again, I'm not saying that these things are bad. Like I literally do social media for a living. Like if people weren't on social media, I wouldn't be able to do the things that I do. But when they pull us away from what God has asked us to do, when they distract us so much so that we've become stagnant, then they rob us of our progress. So before we move on, I want to ask you, which person are you? Are you the person that's dilly-dallying because you're just waiting for the perfect conditions and you're doing something to pass the time while you wait? Or are you the person who has the intention of doing something, but something keeps distracting you. Something keeps pulling your attention away from what it is that you're supposed to be doing. And so you're focusing on the wrong things. Maybe it could be a mix of both, but I really want to challenge you to dive deeper and figure out what is keeping you from spending your time wisely. What are you doing with your time that is taking away from something else more important, more impactful that you could be doing? But I also think dilly-dallying could be rooted in fear. Some of us might have a fear of failing, so we dilly-dally because we don't want to mess anything up. Some of us fear hard work, so we dilly-dally so we don't feel overwhelmed. We want to be relaxed and carefree. Maybe you have a fear of rejection, so you don't do the things that God has asked you to do because you're afraid of what people might think of you. Or maybe you have some imposter syndrome. Maybe you don't feel qualified or good enough to do the things that God has asked you to do. I know I've definitely been scared of the callings that I've had on my life before, and there have been moments where I would distract myself or just simply try and block out the very things that God was telling me to do because I didn't feel ready. I didn't feel prepared. I didn't know if it was even possible. And so I tried my best to just ignore it, not think about it, because out of sight, out of mind, right? So I would just waste time and not really take steps towards anything because waiting felt safer than actually committing. But waiting literally produces nothing. It's like I said earlier, you can't reap what you don't sow. So if you're not planting seeds, if you're not making progress, if you're not trying, then you never know what you could be capable of. So fear does hold us back a lot of the times, and fear can keep us in a chokehold of this waiting game and just trying to pass the time by with mindless, senseless tasks while we wait. Some people might just wait and do nothing, but there's also a group of people who might wait but mask it as productivity. Dilly-dallying doesn't always look like sitting on the couch scrolling on TikTok, doing whatever. Some of us might busy ourselves with research. Some of us might busy ourselves with overly planning. Some of us might busy ourselves with trying to find a mentor or trying to take some kind of business course or online course to learn more about what it is that you want to be doing. And here's the thing. All of those are good and necessary in the season of preparing. Research is important, planning matters, and mentorship is extremely valuable. But when we use them as a way to avoid actually starting, they stop being helpful and become a facade. So it might look like you're busy, it might look like you're making progress, but you're not actually committing to the call. And it sounds better and it looks better because when people ask you, hey, like, how's that thing coming? You can just say, oh, I'm just doing a little bit more research, or, oh, I'm actually taking this 3-month online course, so I can't start it until after that, or I'm actually waiting on my mentor to give me the green light, right? Like, you can kind of put the excuse on something outside of yourself when you are able to disguise your preparation as productivity. Whereas if somebody just saw you doom scrolling or, not really taking anything seriously, the only thing that you have to blame is yourself. So I think this way, some people use it as a cover to keep themselves protected from peering eyes, so nobody really knows the type of progress that you've made. Again, because you might have imposter syndrome or fear of rejection or fear of failure or whatever the case may be. It's like circling the runway but never taking off. I feel like if you fly pretty frequently, then you've had moments where you board the plane, you're waiting, and then the pilot speaks and says, there's bad weather. We're going to have to circle the ground and just wait for everything to pass over before we can take flight in the air. And so you feel the movement. You hear the engines going, like the plane is prepared and ready to take off. However, you're still on the ground. No real progress has been made because, again, you have to wait on these perfect conditions for the weather to just be beautiful before you can ever take off. And while that might be true for an airplane, that is not true for you in your personal life. We cannot confuse busyness with obedience. Just because you're moving doesn't mean that you're making progress. You could just be going around and around in circles. And the longer we choose to stay in that preparation stage or trick ourselves into thinking that that's what it is, the more that we are delaying the promise. We're waiting for clarity. We're waiting for confirmation. We're waiting for another sign. Meanwhile, God is just waiting on us to step out on faith, to believe and trust in him enough that if we step, he's going to step with us. So yes, preparation is important. Like, that is a crucial piece of answering the call that God has put on your heart. But there comes a point where over preparing turns into procrastination. And that is just another form of dilly-dallying. Okay. Take it from someone who is an expert procrastinator. I get stuff done at the very last second every single time. But what am I doing with all of that time before? Being senseless, being aimless, wandering, doing whatever it is I want to do because I feel like I have enough time when really I don't. And so when the time comes for things to be turned in or for things to be done, now I'm scrambling. Now I'm trying to get all of my ducks in a row, when if I would have been stewarding my time well before the due date or before things needed to be done, then I could have set myself up for success. But no, I wanted to waste time doing whatever it was that I was doing for whatever reason I wanted to do it. I think we forget to realize that time is a resource that God gives us daily. Every day we wake up and we have breath in our lungs. That is a gift that God has given us, and we are accountable for that time. Psalm 90 verse 12 says, "Teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom." That means that every day has weight. Every day matters. God wants us to be fully aware that our days are numbered, because the more that we're aware of it, the more urgency that we're going to have of our time here on earth. And the truth is, every day and every time that you decide to just dilly-dally and do whatever it is that you want, that is a day wasted on things that don't matter. Now, don't get me wrong. Rest is necessary. Everybody deserves a break. No one should be working 24/7. I'm not trying to push this hustle culture on anyone, because even God rested on the seventh day, okay? But what I'm trying to highlight here is that rest and avoidance are not the same thing. Rest restores us, okay? It fills us back up in order to keep going. It is very intentional. Whereas avoidance drains us. It numbs us, it distracts us, and it can leave us more restless than we were before. And I hate to say it, but I fear that this self-care culture that we've cultivated in today's society is a little bit scary, because we can get rest and avoidance very confused. Avoidance disguised as rest is dangerous because it tricks us into thinking that we're taking care of ourselves, when in reality we're neglecting the very assignment that God has given us. I think that in order to see those things, you have to have a certain level of self-awareness, and you have to be completely honest with yourself about the things that you're doing and why you're doing them. Because I promise you, if you don't figure it out, the devil has already figured it out, and he would love nothing more than for us to continue just wasting our days away, doom scrolling on TikTok, when we should be the person creating, or allowing our fear to stop us from progressing. Because if he can't destroy you, he's going to distract you. And a lot of us lately, me included, have been distracted for way too long. When we waste time, we're not just losing hours, we are literally losing opportunities to sow, to grow, and to walk in obedience of the very things that God has asked us to do. Every scroll, every delay, every moment that we spend preparing instead of actually planting, it all adds up at the end of the day. And I'm sure that if we could keep a tally of how much time is dedicated to what during our day, a lot of us would be shocked at how much time we wasted by doing absolutely nothing. And so the question becomes, how are you stewarding the time that God has given you? Because a lot of us are praying for big things to happen in our life. We're praying for major success. We're praying for generational curses to be broken and all the things. But the harvest that we're praying for is connected to the seeds that we're planting today. And if you're not stewarding your time well and planting seeds that are going to get you to your goal, then you're not doing anything. So I want to leave us with some practical steps that will hopefully help us steward our time well and make us more aware of when we are wasting our day away. So number one, we have to start small and stay consistent. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment. You just need to be willing to step into obedience in a small, simple way. So an example could be, maybe you want to start a business. Instead of trying to start your entire business at one time, maybe start with one client. Sprinkle the idea to someone and say, hey, I'm interested in doing this. Do you need help in this capacity? Like, would you be willing to be a trial run for me just to see how this goes, how I want to run things? Just start small and progress it from there. Small obedience is better than big intentions, okay? God wants our obedience more than he wants anything else. So as long as we are doing what he's asked of us and we are taking steps towards that, it don't matter what it looks like to him. It don't have to be the big thing all at once. He just wants to see that you have the faith to actually take the steps to get there. Step number 2, we are going to focus on what's in our hands. So that means that we're going to stop coveting after other people's lives and what they have. That means that we're going to stop trying to outsource different resources and different people to help us. It means we're going to use the skills and the things that we already have. So you need to ask yourself the question, what has God already given me that I can start with? Sometimes we think we need more degrees or more experience or more help, when really God is just asking us to use what he has given us. He's already embedded in us the very thing that we need to achieve what he's asking us to do. He just needs you to tap into it. Stop looking at everyone and everything else and look internally and see what it is that you can do with what you already have. Step number 3, you are going to set boundaries with your distractions. Stewarding your time well is not about just doing more and spending your time doing more productive things. It can also look like taking away things that is sucking up your time in the day. So example, maybe you need to limit your screen time. Okay, this is something that I probably need to do. Maybe you need to set up certain how do you say, time blocks on your phone where you can't be on certain apps at certain times. I don't really know how you can do that. I think you can do it in your settings or whatever. And I know that sounds like a little extreme, but sometimes we need it. Sometimes we just can't help it. It is literally second nature for me when I'm not doing anything. If I'm just sitting there, to go on my phone and immediately go to Instagram or go to TikTok. And it's why do I do that? There's something else that I could be doing with that time. So let me just eliminate the distractions that are there so that it forces me to do something else. Okay, step number 4, we're going to prioritize what actually matters. Like I mentioned before, being busy does not equal productivity, okay? Because you could be busy doing a whole bunch of things that is not getting you nowhere to where you need to be. So the night before or the morning when you wake up before the day really begins, you really should highlight your top priorities for the day. What are things that you need and have to get done no matter what before the day is over? And you need to commit to finishing those things before you try and go do anything else. I know that the days can seem overwhelming and stressful, which is why a lot of us do like to dilly-dally, because we just get to be stress-free on vibes, just doing whatever. But at the same time, we know that there are things that we need to accomplish, and the only way that's going to happen is if we are being task-oriented. So if you know what the important things are that you need to do or that you should be doing, make those a priority in the day so that you can get them done. And then after they're done, then you can dilly dally. Then you can go and have fun and read your books and go to the movies and go to Target and Starbucks and whatever else. Okay, and then the last tip that I have for us is to trust God with the harvest. Your job is to plant, God's job is to bring the increase, okay? But He can't increase what you don't sow. I think a lot of times we can get overwhelmed, especially when God has called and asked us to do big things, but reminding yourself of what your job is going to be so crucial, because you realize you don't have to do it all. And God doesn't want you to do it all. And by realizing that, it kind of reduces this pressure to see immediate results. Planting takes time. Like when you plant something in the ground, it don't just grow overnight. Like literally, it is a process. You have to water it. You have to cater to it. Sometimes you have to prune it. I've watched my pawpaw do it for years with his garden, and it's like at the beginning of the season it's just dirt, and he tells me all the things that he's planted, and he's out there watering it every day, and he's catering to his garden. And then one day I go there and it's just like big greeny leaves and watermelons and carrots and potatoes and just like all of these things that literally took so much time to grow. So stop thinking that you're the one who has to do everything. You need to understand what your role is. Your role is to be the planter. God's role is to increase that so that when it's time for you to harvest, when it's time for you to see the fruits of your labor, you're able to do that. I actually saw a TikTok video today. Cause see, I be doom scrolling and I need to stop. But sometimes I be seeing good stuff on there. And today I saw something good. And this woman was talking to us about how she asked God to reveal things to her through her gardening. And so she told me, girl, I did not know this lady. I was watching the video and she was saying how she was going to plant some, I forgot what it was. Let's just say it was collard greens. Okay. She was going to plant some collard greens and the instructions told her to plant 2 seeds. But she didn't think that all of the seeds would germinate. So she started putting like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seeds in her little pot that she was planting. And a few days later, she comes and she realizes that all of the seeds did germinate, and now the seeds are like overtaking her pot, and it basically defeated the purpose of like what it was that she was trying to do or something. Girl, I don't really understand gardening for real, but I'm just trying to explain. But anyway, she said that the Holy Spirit told her that expectation is tied to obedience. If you don't expect your seeds to grow, then you won't be obedient to the instruction, right? Because the instructions only told her to plant 2, but she started planting 6, 7, 8, 9 because she wasn't expecting all of the seeds to actually be able to produce the thing that she was trying to grow. So I say all of that to say, God will literally give us things in seed form, an idea, a vision, a plan. And with those things, He also most times will give us a sense of direction and a list of instructions to follow. And it is our job to see the potential of what that seed can turn into. And we have to have expectation that the seed that He's given us will actually harvest itself in the future. So that means that we can't waste time. We can't try and do things our way or deviate from the instructions that God has given us, because that literally shows that we don't trust in the vision that God gave us. We don't believe that He's going to do what He said He was going to do. And that circles back all the way to the beginning where I said planting is a risk, but we have to be able to see our little seed, our little vision, our little dream as its full harvest. We have to see it for what it is at the end, at the beginning. And that just takes an extreme level of faith. And again, if we don't believe in that vision, or if we don't feel qualified enough to do that vision, or we get stuck in this preparation cycle where we're just constantly preparing but never doing, then that causes us to dilly-dally. It causes us to lose focus of the vision. It causes us to be distracted. It causes us to do things that are not beneficial or bringing us closer to what it is that God has asked us to do. And in a sense, that is us wasting our time here on earth, because what are we doing here if not the very thing that God asked us to do? So I really want you to reflect this week. Where have I been dilly-dallying? Where have I been wasting my time? Where have I been distracted? It is time for us to stop watching the wind, to stop looking at the clouds, and actually start planting. and being intentional about the time that we have here on earth. Because God doesn't need perfect conditions. He just needs your focus and he needs your obedience. And if he has those two things, he can do a great and mighty work through you. And again, this is something that I myself am going to be working on this week. Like, we are at the tail end of the year. Like, y'all realize we are stepping into quarter 4 expeditiously, like literally next week. So I think it's just time for everybody to lock in, to stop being distracted, to stop having our focus be put in too many different directions, and really just hone in on what it is that God has asked us to do. Stop dilly-dallying, okay? It's dangerous. Like, I get it. I understand wanting to just be mindless and be aimless and not feel stressed, but at the same time, you cannot let that become your lifestyle, because if it does, I promise you, you will look up one day and be like, dang, bro, I wasted so much time. I was supposed to do this, and this, and I was too distracted with TikTok. I was too distracted with what people thought about me. I was too distracted with fear of rejection that I didn't do it. And one thing about me, I don't want no regrets, especially when I'm old and gray. I want to be able to look back on my life and be proud of the way that I spent my time and be proud of the things that I've done. So this is not to condemn anyone. This is just simply a wake-up call and to make us all aware of how we're choosing to spend our time, because it is important. Okay. And with that, I am going to leave you. I hope that was helpful. It was definitely helpful for me. Everything that I be coming on here week to week saying to y'all is really just me preaching to myself. Like, this is just stuff that I need to hear, that I need to be focused on, so that I can continue showing up and doing the things that God has asked and called me to do. So I hope that it spoke to you the same way that it spoke to me, and that we go through this week more focused than we have ever been in the entire year. Okay, I'm claiming that for everyone. But yes, girl, I love you so much. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast, leave a like, a comment, and a 5-star rating if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. I hope that you have a great Monday, a great week, and I will talk to you in my next episode. Bye.